We now continue with our EHEDG Connects Forum discussion, in which we'd like to address the latest developments in the EHEDG product portfolio. With us today are Tracy Schonrock, the co-chair of the EHEDG Sub-Committee Product Portfolio, who's also going to tell us something about guideline development. We have Marc Mauermann, the chair of the EHEDG Working Group Training and Education. And we have Andy Timperley, the chairman of the EHEDG Working Group Certification. Gentlemen, nice to have you here. Let's dive right into it with a general question for Marc and Andy. How has the pandemic affected the ongoing processes? Andy?
We've tried as hard as possible to keep everybody safe at the ATLs in order to coordinate the testing and the required protective measures. With regards to, microbiology laboratories and things like that, people are very used to wearing protective clothing. So the addition of face masks and extra sanitary practices is no real great shakes to them, because that's what they do every day. It is a new attitude, because it then becomes cross-talk between two people rather than not breathing in the contents of a Petri dish, Mm-hmm. So I think with a very quick re-education of social practices, we got around the problem of the testing laboratories fairly easily.
Thank you, Andy. Marc, I reckon that the EHEDG training and education services have been much more severely impacted by the corona restrictions.
Yeah, really no trainings did take place for a long time. Since March there was also almost no meeting, face-to-face meeting, and that's why we focused also our time on the definition of let's say an EHEDG online training portfolio in cooperation with Sub-Communication. So what is e-learning or online training for EHEDG? So this is ongoing. Yeah, we are not finished right now, because this is rather complex. We are working on the definition of formats, on the adaptation or creation of content, something like this. So once we have this ready, then we come up with a proposal to the EXCO.
Tracy, can you give us your leadership perspective on this? The EXCO, in conjunction with the EHEDG Advisory Board, has implemented some new regulations, for example, with regard to certification and guideline development. Why was that necessary?
As we've grown larger as an organization, EHEDG has to then start looking at standardizing our own procedures so that we're not flying by the seat of our pants and, a new situation came up and they make a new ruling. No, we want to have standardized procedures that hopefully don't change too much over time, and that everybody then does everything the same way. We want the guidelines to look the same. We want them to be structured the same. And that's what SCP 2-2 does, is we want certain required sections, and we want them positioned in the document in the same place. So if somebody picks up two different documents, he can find the same relative information in the same parts of the document, and that they read similar. So there is a lot of that kind of administrative, sounds somewhat mundane guidance that we want to do, but it's necessary for EHEDG to be effective and efficient in the workplace and for our clients. So the activities that we're trying to structure with Ferdinand is that he can work with the working group chairs so they all hear the same message, They all get the same communications. They are all advised and instructed to do it the way EHEDG wants it. We work with volunteers. We work with extraordinarily capable volunteers.
Mhm.
And capable and creative people very often want to do it their way. Well, that's okay. That's good. But EHEDG has a way. And we ask them to take their creativity and use that to flesh out the guidance in the guideline in a structured way. It's like, and I don't want to be offensive, it's like a parent and a child. You set certain rules. If it's raining, you wear your boots and a hat. Now the child doesn't have to think about it anymore. He doesn't spend any more time on it. Now he can concentrate on going outside and playing. Well, we're trying to set a structure for the guidelines so that these creative working group people can then concentrate on the important stuff.
I would like to complement Tracy's description of the guideline structure with two very important footnotes. The first one is that all the guideline documents will hopefully now include certification requirements and key learning points for training. So it'll make it a lot easier to integrate the new guidelines under this new structure within the certification scheme and also within the training program. So that's a very, very important addendum, if you like, to the guideline documents. Not only are we giving them best practice, but we're also saying what additional requirements we would like to see on the equipment or the factory or whatever it is for certification.
Food for thought by Andy. Marc, you have done some organizational adaptations in the training and education group. What is that about?
We have defined a new organizational structure with distributed responsibilities. So I'm the chairman. Rafa from Maïna, Spain, is the co-chair, and then we have, let's say, four different pillars below, kind of substructure. One substructure where Rafa has his responsibility is focusing on trainers. So the expectations for this substructure is that they are defining the qualifications and the skills that we are expecting from our authorized trainers. They are handling all the applications. They are focusing on this format that we have developed a couple of years ago, what is called Train the Trainer, where we get in contact with the trainers and presenting them the latest developments in presentations or some new, that we talk with them about new guidelines and new rules, something like this, so that we just get in contact with the trainers and have, and that they are really updated about ongoing developments. And they are also going to handle the 5-year re-evaluation according to SEP 3.2.
Yes, well, now that we're talking about renewal requirements, Andy, the new recertification requirements, how have they affected the demand for the services of the EHEDG accredited testing laboratories?
It's escalated. It's now ramping up.
Is it? Okay.
Because we tried to segregate the renewals so the testing laboratories didn't get overloaded, so we could keep a steady stream of business and also keep the customers happy so they weren't waiting for months and months and months for a recertification on a piece of equipment. So we've tried to coordinate it in the best possible way for the customers and also not to overload the ATLs.
So how long will it take in average now to, if you send in a piece of equipment for certification, to get...
It's geographic location, Rob. If you're in Germany and you want to use the German ATL and AEO, you'll have a lot longer wait than if you're using America or Spain or Italy, because of the large concentration of equipment manufacturers in Germany.
Yes.
Who have an EHEDG certificate already, or want a new one, or want to expand the range of equipment. So it's not as simple as just signing a piece of paper.
Tracy, what's your view on this?
We're trying to educate the users of EHEDG's certification service that they need to recognize that EHEDG is a business also. We're in the business of certifying. Therefore, just like any other business, we have capital budgets, we have limitations on resources, and we need to have the understanding that as we grow larger and larger, there are other things that are necessary. I'll take the 5-year renewal in particular, is that our product is a certification. The integrity of that certification is vitally important, not only to us, but also to the client. His buyers need to have a good feeling and have trust that the certification means something. So a 5-year recertification cycle helps protect that integrity. And they didn't like it, but I don't know an engineer alive that can resist changing or tweaking a design. They always think of a better way. They think of a more efficient way. Well, some of those tweaks and changes can impact the cleanability. So we have to retest every once in a while to make sure everything's still okay and the certificate is valid.
Well, so the other important aspect about the 5-year recertification was that maybe the initial certificate only included one type of pump or one size or one valve, and the company wanted to get the best bang for buck. So they said, okay, well, we've got the 2-inch. We want the 1-inch right the way through to the 6-inch. So that was a lot more work for the AEO to then determine worst case scenario. It's not just testing one piece of equipment. It's now certifying a range of equipment. And we've worked very, very hard within our group on our regular WebEx meetings to come up with sensible selection criteria, which won't cost the companies hundreds of thousands of euros to do dynamic CFD modeling on load pumps and stuff like that. We're trying to be as friendly as possible to our customers and determine the maximum scope that they can have of their certified equipment. So this again has impacted on the reaction time for a 5-year renewal, because the company wants to add 10 more sizes or whatever. So that takes time to review.
Andy is right that communications between the AEO, the ATL, the laboratories, and the client is vitally important to keep things moving, and also to keep customers aware of what the delays may be or what additional information may be, so that they can get all of their information properly organized before they make a request. Oftentimes, as Andy said, a new customer comes in and says, I wanted this certified, and doesn't have a clue of what they need to do. So this preliminary contact can be very efficient and very helpful to all parties involved.
Marc, what is happening at training and education at the moment? What are you working on while the classrooms will probably remain to be empty for a while?
What we know right now, and this is consensus within training education group, that these online training activities are focusing on basic training and not on advanced training courses. And yeah, we came to the conclusion that these online training offerings will not replace the face-to-face trainings in the classroom. This is still the golden standard. We are not touching these, and we are not thinking of a replacement. So this is kind of additional offering.
Okay.
At the moment, focusing on basic training courses. Yeah.
There's no caveat for online training for the advanced course. We may go down the route for some of the basic stuff to do it, you know, virtual or whatever. But no, the advanced one, you've got to be there.
Because for the advanced, you just need to see.
It's too interactive, Rob.
Yes, yes.
You know, you can't do it over a camera.
Regarding a new test method that you've been working on, all three of you gentlemen actually, I believe, a test method that helps the testing laboratories to ascertain the cleanability, hygienic design of the outer surfaces of equipment, if I'm correctly informed. Andy, can you please first explain the technical background, and then maybe Tracy can tell us something about the reasons why you developed this method.
The test that's being developed with Tracy and Marc at Fraunhofer,
yes,
is to give us a similar approach to EL Class 1 to EL Class 1 AUX. Because at the moment, we don't have a test method for cleaning the outside of components. We have a test method for the inside cleanability, pumps, valves, pipelines, you know, all that sort of stuff that is CIP'd, cleaned in place. But for items of equipment that are in an open environment, we don't have a method.
Okay.
And it's been a big challenge to develop a method. So it's to not only support the certification scheme, but it's also to improve the credibility of the certification scheme. Because at the moment, the only certification criteria that we have are the black and white requirements in the guideline documents.
Tracy, that sounds sensible, but where did the idea come from? Was it a request from the industry?
The primary push for developing this test came from the industry. It came from the members. Many of the large manufacturers, the Cargills, the Nestles, the big Unilevers, the big companies, they look at their production facilities in a holistic manner. They want to have not only certified equipment, but they also want to have certain assurances that the entire processing area is in fact cleanable. And so that was one of the basic pushes for the development of the robot test. Now, we've had very good success in the development. I have a meeting coming up in a few days with the task group to finalize the standard operating procedure for the test, and we are ready to start providing the test to the industry. Fraunhofer is ready to go. They have skilled people. We need to work with the communication subcommittee to get a public notice out that this test is now available, that they can send samples, and we can then start using the test. Now, there are some similarities to the current testing procedure for the inside surfaces. We still follow the guidance of document 8, which is the general hygienic design principles for the outside, because the concept that most of these companies use is in open processing, where product is exposed to the processing environment. Everything in that environment is considered potentially product contact. Mm-hmm. So anything that comes off the exterior of a pump or a support leg or a control cabinet can be aerosolized into the environment and eventually settle on exposed product. So there are some similarities, but Andy is right. It is a completely different and completely new set of parameters, and they're not equatable. You can't test the outside and assume the inside is okay, or vice versa.
Great. Well, let's talk about content then. Marc, with regard to the contents of the training and education offerings, does your group have any plans to further align the contents of the training and education offerings to the actual needs, the ever-changing needs of the industry?
Me and all the other team members are updating existing materials. We are developing new presentations, new topics, also video and animations, so that we get new good content for our training offerings. So, and then we have new learning formats, and that's a responsibility of Alan Fries. And he has to take care and has to analyze different trends. So what is for EHEDG in the field of new learning formats to do e-learning, for instance, so that we get some insight and can decide whether or not we are going in this direction. We are spending money on the development of more e-learning formats or micro-learning, something like this. And behind Alan, there is also a team. The team members are Gerhard, Patrick, and Rafa. And then we have another subgroup, and this is focusing on training courses. It's a responsibility of Sanya, and her team is Hein, Tracy, Marc from Russia, Irene, and Udo Weitinger. Mm-hmm. And our expectations are that they give us recommendations for training content for different focus groups, recommendations for content for scalable scalable and flexible training courses, depending on the need of the students or in the focus groups, and that they give us recommendations for new training content that are needed by our company members.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Things are moving on despite of the corona crisis, and let's use our last minutes, because time is running out, to address what are we aiming for? What are all the different working groups aiming for together? What is the common goal here? Food safety, I guess, productivity, maybe even sustainability. What about the reputation of the food processing companies? Everything is at stake and related to hygienic design, isn't it?
You know, we're trying to be as useful as we can and pool our knowledge from the industry, from the equipment manufacturers, from the experts, from the regulatory side, and bring everybody together to sing off the same hymn sheet, hopefully, with a view to global food safety. That's always been the goal of EHEDG, is to protect the health of the consumer. So if we can do that in a well-structured way with transparency and good communication, good dissemination, good training, then we are achieving our goal.
As Andy said, it all works towards making your brand so recognizable and so acceptable for all the purposes, whether it be quality, flavor, safety. It's brand integrity for the industry.
Well, thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Marc. Thank you, Andy, for your contributions, your explanations here. Please don't go anywhere, because we're going straight into the Q&A session, and I'm connecting us through to the Secretariat in Frankfurt, where Susanna, Alexandra, and Johanna collected some questions from the viewers for you, and they will pose them to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, for the interview today and for giving me the opportunity to address the forum on the subjects that we've discussed. I will look forward to being on the interactive question and answer session for the plenary meeting later in this year. And I will also look forward to getting back to some more normality and meeting people in person at some time in the future. So thanks very much.
I look forward to interesting questions in the question and answer period, and I wish that not only with this session, that the participants enjoy the entire plenary session being presented by EHEDG.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Bye.